All right, you guys. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Surprise, Austin and I have been gone for a little bit, but now we're back. We're fired up, as I put in the chat, and we're ready to go with a little twist put on a few things that we've been working on. So, first and foremost, welcome back to the show, everybody. And this guy right over here, Austin, welcome.
What's up, sports fans? It's great. It's great to finally be back on a podcast.
On a podcast, indeed. So,
Yeah.
you guys, we have some explaining to do tonight. We are going to give you guys some updates. We're going to go over what we've got going on our new documentary that we are. I mean, Austin, how excited are we about our new documentary?
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty awesome. Not gonna lie.
He's so calm right now. I mean, I'm like pumped up, and he's really calm about it. But so we're going to go over that, and then Austin is going to be sharing with us at the tail end of the show what happened on his recent 3-day trek on segment 3 of the Mountains
Yeah.
of Sea Trail.
It has nothing to do with anything else that we're talking about. It's just fresh in my mind. So
I just want to hear about it because, you know, we've all had some crazy adventures out on the trail. And for a lot of us, that's what we like to do, have crazy adventures out on the trail. But before we get into the updates, let's recognize some people in the chat. How about it? So I got to give my sister a big shout out. So my sister, Terry Kidder, is in the chat. She says, let's go. I see some more people in here.
Skunk Ape's out there.
Skunk Ape's out there. We got Alpha Gal. Hey, hey, hey. What is happening, Alpha? Or I should say, Chryzacone. Chris, you need to change your channel to Alpha Gal. Or were you Chryzacone first? I'm not sure which one. Give it up for Skunk Ape, the Hammock Hangers podcast. Oh, I didn't even read this. It says, I love it when these two get together to do some chatting. That's because you never know what's going to happen. And we got Stella in the house, who is, I don't know what pic she's talking about, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh. I know what pic she's talking about.
We got
Stella. So Stella took the photo for our thumbnail for tonight's
Austin.
show.
You can't tell everything.
You didn't tell me not to say that. So.
Well, that is true. So thank you, Stella, for taking the picture for our cover art. Truly appreciated. Looks like we have Boots on the trail in this one as well. Something happened. There you go, Boots. Boots says he's excited for this one. And yeah, so we got a nice little crowd in here this evening. So I guess we should start with some updates. What's happened? Where did we go after our January podcast episode that we started? And probably the best way to say this is, I was thinking about this today, Austin. I feel like we were in the whale with Jonah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we went on a whale ride inside the belly of a whale with Jonah. If y'all know who Jonah and the whale, the old biblical story. And then the whale spit us out, and here we are. We're back. So
Yeah, it was. I think we were very excited about the where we were going, but I think this is just, and we're going to talk more about where we're going, like updates and that kind of thing. But it's just more us.
yeah.
I think we're just staying true to who we are and not trying to recreate the wheel, and it just feels natural now.
Yeah.
So,
and I think we're going to have some more fun. So you guys will notice there's a little bit different name at the top of this, what they call professionally in the podcast world, an overlay. So at the top of our overlay, you will notice a name, Beyond the Trail. So that is what we are calling this podcast that you are listening to right now or watching, is Beyond the Trail. And Beyond the Trail is going to sit on my YouTube channel, Julie Gayheart. And I don't know. How do we explain this, Austin? I've got you. I could pull this up. Should we pull things up and tell people how we're going to operate?
Pull it up.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
So go ahead.
I think what my lay version of walking into podcasting is it looks like Google is trying to establish themselves as a podcast platform, like Apple has for the longest time, and Spotify and all that other stuff. And I think it's exciting because Google and YouTube and all the other things that Google owns, they're everywhere, and so it's a seamless transition for them. If they decide, hey, we want to do podcasts, all of a sudden they've got this reach through
Yeah.
YouTube and all, and the very, very powerful algorithm that's behind YouTube, to put podcasts in front of people that wouldn't necessarily be podcast listeners to begin with. Because I don't consider myself a diehard podcast fan. I have like a handful that I listen to, but I'm not, unless I get a recommendation from Jester or from somebody else, I'm not going to seek something out.
Yeah.
And so this is a way for podcasts to kind of be put in front of people that wouldn't necessarily be looking for them. So I think it's exciting. But go ahead and pull it up if you want.
So, yeah. So
And
let's take one more step back. I can't help it, this education thing.
yeah,
So originally, when Austin and I decided, that we actually liked each other, we liked working together, we wanted to create films, we wanted to podcast together, we just wanted a place outside of the Jester Section Hiker podcast and outside of Side Trail Adventures to kind of get together and have our own conversation. And over the last couple weeks, we've really been thinking about how do we want to do this? And then YouTube kind of gave me the answer. So, and then I presented it to Austin, and he hasn't said no yet. So we're still in that boat where ideas are presented and Austin says yes, or maybe says no in his own mind and says, well, we'll figure this out. So I want to give you guys an example. So everybody knows that Austin is a video creator. And Austin has his YouTube channel, Side Trail Adventures. Everybody go subscribe. Don't leave this yet, but in a little bit, go subscribe over to Side Trail Adventures. And what you are looking at is the main page of Side Trail Adventures. And all you YouTube aficionado, whatever that word is, I can't say it, aficionados, whatever.
that's it.
Out there, I got it. Will know that you can create playlist on your homepage of your YouTube channel. So for example, on Austin's channel, he's got his most popular, the videos that are most popular. Then you could watch all of his videos if you want to. And then he's got a playlist specifically for the Mountains of Sea Trail, specifically for his John Muir Trail trip. And if you guys haven't watched this, I'm telling you right now, go watch it. And you can watch specific things. And that is awesome if you are a YouTube video creator. So it makes sense for Austin and I, when we create videos, for them to go on Austin's channel. It just makes sense. So you can see here, he's got our Woods Hole project. And he's also got I Am the MST on his channel because Austin is the video creator. And then if you switch over to my YouTube channel, which actually, you guys, I have only actively been working on my YouTube channel since like November, the end of 2022. Now, because YouTube is entering the podcast world with full force, it only behooves all podcasters to now make sure their show is on YouTube, because now if you load your podcast, it's specifically video podcasting, which I've loaded all my old episodes of Jester Section Hiker. I can now create a playlist. So for example, Jester Section Hiker, I click on that and YouTube now recognizes Jester Section Hiker as a podcast. And I will go out hopefully into the YouTube podcasting world instead of being lumped in with all the video creators. So there's one.
Yeah, you don't want to be lumped into.
I don't want to be lumped in.
That's a shady crowd.
That's a shady. So it shady makes crowd. Sense if we want a podcast that we just add an addition to my channel. since I am the podcast creator of the duo, thus Beyond the Trail, and YouTube is already recognizing us as a podcast. And we technically, this will be our first episode, which I am calling 001. And literally all I had to do was create a playlist, identify that playlist as a podcast, and then come up with a title. And actually, this is probably the best thing for us to do is to read this. So, and it'll tell you guys exactly what we're doing. So it says Jester and Austin have shared many podcast episodes together on the Jester Section Hiker podcast, where they've talked about their section hiking adventures, interviewed fellow creators, and shared their own creative endeavors. Would you agree, Austin?
I'd say that's a fair guess.
Okay. And now Jester and Austin have now branched off to their own live podcast titled Beyond the Trail. Jester and Austin will continue to share their outdoor adventures, interviews with fellow creators, and updates from their production company. Get ready, everybody. Jester Wallis Productions. The podcast content for Beyond the Trail will be exclusive to YouTube and YouTube Music, where they will encourage you, all of you, to go beyond the trail. So hopefully that answers y'all's questions. So going forward, Austin and I, we have a production company. It makes sense to call it Jester Wallis Productions. And maybe, Austin, you should tell us why we added the Wallis.
So Wallis is actually my middle name. A lot of people, I'm on Facebook as Austin Wallis just because I choose to keep my actual last name off of there. But Wallis is just a family name for me that doesn't really exist anywhere else in my family. So it's just a little nod to my family history to kind of keep it alive. So that's why.
So it only made sense. Jester Wallis makes sense to me. I don't know why it didn't hit us before. So you guys, we are excited. Any of the video content that Austin and I put together, it's either going to go to the individuals that pay us to do video content, or it'll sit on Austin's channel. And any podcast content will sit on my channel, including what we're doing right now, Beyond the Trail. And we're excited.
Yeah, this is definitely a good fit for us. So,
and it makes sense.
I'm excited.
It makes sense. So we would like to hear your comments on this. If it makes sense to us, it would only make sense that it makes sense to y'all. So if you want to give us some comments, put some fire down there, put some thumbs up, put some, what do you call these, whoop whoops? I don't know.
The whoop whoop. The whoop whoop emoji.
And we are, put some whoop whoop emoji down in the chat, so we know that you all understand exactly what's going on. And let me tell y'all, the beauty of all of this is this will sit directly on the channel. You don't have to wait another week or two for it to come out. It's there. We don't have to re-edit. We could repurpose video because we are recording this entire video right now. We could do shorts. We could go on TikTok if we want. I'm not going on TikTok.
No,
we could go on TikTok.
It's against my religion to go on TikTok. I don't know what religion that might be, but it's against it. There's no TikTok.
There's a podcast. I got to tell y'all this. Speaking of TikTok, and see, this is what it's all about. We're just having fun. So there's a podcast I listen to that the gentleman that is the host of the podcast calls it Tic Tac. So we are not going on TikTok. That's it. We're not doing it. Oh, you're supposed to laugh, Austin.
I did laugh.
Maybe there's a lag. Maybe there's a lag.
Yeah, that's what we'll call it. So yeah, so that's where we are creatively. I know we just kind of dumped a lot, but yeah, Jester Wallis Productions is where kind of the professional. I'll use that air quotes professional because I still don't consider myself a professional. But the products that we do as a company will go through Jester Wallis Productions. There's not going to be a separate YouTube channel or something you have to go find and everything like that. And but yeah, any free content that we create is going to go on Side Trail Adventures. Um, and yeah, I'm personally excited about it because I was telling Julie this. I was like, I miss being on a podcast, and that's weird for me to say because it was a weird thing for me for a while to. But it's just such an easy, natural way to get out and talk about things that we enjoy talking about. So yeah, I'm excited personally. So I'm glad to
Yeah.
be back.
Yeah. So as Austin would say, good times.
Good time.
So yeah, so there's the updates. That's kind of what we got going on. And we are getting into the good stuff now. We started production on our documentary this year, and already, you guys, I mean, whew, if you have been on social media, Instagram, I've put out some teasers out there. Our partner, oh, that's the other thing. Our partner that was with us in the belly of the whale is still with us. So Wim at Hiker Metals is still with us. He's full force with us, working with us on our documentary. And should we talk about Hiker Metals now, or should we wait?
So let's yeah. So I think yeah, let's talk about Hacker Metals now because Wim is partnering with us on a few different things.
Yeah.
Um, and so from a personal standpoint, we got to meet Wim last weekend, whatever it was. Got to
Oh,
meet
I didn't tell
he and
you.
his
Wim
wife.
gave me this
Look at that.
last
That's
weekend. This
shiny.
is the new AT metal from Hiker
That's
Metals.
that's pretty classy right there.
And I'll show you the old one. This is the one that I got in 2017. On
So
the
you've
back
got
of
a
it, it says, yeah, on the back
collection.
of it, it says, I'm done. Well,
You're not done. You're
that was a
not done.
lie.
But no. So Hiker Metals is partnering with us for a couple of different projects. And so the project that we're putting all of our time and effort into right now is can
I don't think we'll
I'm
say
not going to
everything but the name. Don't say the name yet.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the name we're gonna keep close. If you're in the inner circle, you probably already know the name.
Oh,
But we're
wait, the
doing a
circle of
documentary.
trust. You
Yeah,
remember that movie? Meet. I asked Stephanie. The Meet the
meet the
Fockers. The
parents.
circle of
Meet the
trust.
parents.
Yes.
Yep. But yeah, so the documentary is going to be about the Haywood County Search and Rescue Team. Haywood County being here in North Carolina, out in the mountains. There are some individuals associated with that team that we're going to be. We're already. I consider them friends at this point, and we've already just begun this project. Um, but hiker safety has always been something that Julie and I have talked about. Julie talked about it long before I got into the picture. So it's a subject that's near and dear to our hearts. But the search and rescue, um, the process, and I'll use that term with a capital P, the process, because there's so much that goes into if you find yourself out in the woods and you're in over your head, or you need help. There's this organization that comes to your aid, and so we want to tell that story, and we want to make it not only a like, hey, let's appreciate these folks that are doing this thing, but we also want to make it a little educational too, about hiker safety. And I don't know if, but with that in mind, um, yeah, Wim's already put this out, so I'll put it out.
Yeah.
One of the things that Hiker Metals has done as part of this project is actually created a medal for the Smokies 900 miler, and so I will refer you over to Hiker Metals on Facebook and Instagram to
I'm
go
going to put
see.
the link in the chat right now for Hiker Metals.
Yeah, but the work that Wim put into that medal definitely shows. I mean, that is unbelievable. Just the level of detail and the obvious care that he puts into the design um, really comes out. And so the a portion of the sales from that medal
Yeah, 10%.
are yeah are going to the Western North Carolina Wilderness Safety Fund, and the proceeds from any funds that we make from the documentary project itself are also going to the Western North Carolina Wilderness Safety Fund. The significance of that fund is that the Haywood County Search and Rescue Team is all volunteer, um, which and still in my brain, I was talking with some of these folks that are kind of the brains behind the operation, and it just boggled my mind that there was little to no government funding. I was like, but if somebody calls 911, you're gonna come. So why is there no government funding? So the Wilderness Safety Fund is their way of funding their projects, buying gear, because these folks are going out in some pretty austere environments. They just did a rescue last week. It was actually the same time I was out freezing my tail off. And it was, in the 20s, and the wind is whipping, and they just go out in all the weather that you don't want to go out in is what they're out in operating, trying to find somebody to bring them home. So you need legitimate gear for that. You need legitimate training for that, and that stuff doesn't come automatically. It's something that has to be worked on over time. And so this is our way of trying to help with that process, and not only help financially, but help get the story out, get their message out. And so I could not be more proud and more excited to be working on this project, because I think it has the potential to really impact a lot of folks, and make a positive impact on the hiker community in general. So yeah, I'm super stoked, and the people that Julie and I have gotten to meet during this process, it's such a privilege to
Yeah.
just sit down with some of these people.
And the
Um,
reason, to me, what's impacted me is the reason these individuals join a search and rescue team, knowing that it's
mhm.
all volunteer, knowing the training they have to put in, the certifications they have to
Yeah,
achieve to do this. It's been eye opening for me, because one of the things that I think about as a hiker, that because a close family friend of mine went missing, Chris Sherpa Fowler, is what it takes on the back end for these search and rescue teams to actually go out and find you.
yeah,
And that is one of the things that we want to feature that I don't think hikers think about. That'll be a small part of it as well. So we are excited. We're excited that Hiker Metals, Wim, like Austin said, we got a chance to meet Wim and his wife, Laura. And they flew from Texas to be with us for the weekend. And Wim took a lot of footage that weekend. And they're right there with us. And I totally appreciate it. And you guys can help Wim out if you go to his website, hikermetals.com, which is in the chat. He has, how many medals, Austin? 40? 42, I think he said, in addition to the
it,
one that he's going to put out about the Smokies.
yeah. He's been putting out some new ones too this year.
Yeah.
And they're all they're high quality. Like I went and bought I bought a set of 4 John Muir Trail medals for myself, for my brother, and then our 2 trail friends, TMI and Panic, that we're good friends with now. So like they're just beautiful little mementos for each trail. And like Julie said, like there's one for the Mountains to Sea Trail. If you're a MSTer, they've all the big trails, but you'd be surprised some of the other trails that he's got medals for.
Yeah.
They're all over the world. It's not just U.S. So if you're an international hiker, he's probably got one for you too. So, um,
So
but
one
I
more
think,
thing,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
no matter what medal you buy, whether you buy the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide, 10% of that will go to those trail organizations. And the Smokies 900 miler medal, 10% of that will go to the Western North Carolina Wilderness Fund. And for all you listeners out there, and you could share this, whenever you go to the website and buy your metal, if you just type in Jester in all caps, Jester, you will get 20% off. So you could use the code. Isn't that a fancy code?
It's certainly easy to remember. Catchy.
So if you go right now, and I just want to show you guys one more thing. And we're just really proud of the work that we're doing on this film and working with Hiker Metals. This right here, the Trail Angel medal, is one that, well, first of all, I'm terrible in buying people gifts. Like, I never know what to buy anybody. I don't even like receiving gifts. I don't know what to do. So sometimes it's weird to send people flowers if they do something nice for you. So if somebody does something for me, most people know in the adventure world, outdoor world, specifically in the hiking world, what trail angels are. So I would buy somebody this Trail Angel medal as a gift, because maybe they did something special for me, or maybe we worked together on a project and they were my trail angel. They helped me, they saved me. So it doesn't necessarily have to be hiking related or you completed a trail. So he has various medals on there that could mean different things. And I guess one last thing, I don't know if you guys could see this. He also does engraving. And he's got some pretty crazy engraving requests, like, will you marry me? And somebody said no, or I don't know. He's got some pretty crazy stories on that. But so hikermetals.com, you can use the code Jester. You get 20% off. He is partnering with us on this film. And what that means is we're going to do everything we can to raise funds for the Western North Carolina Wilderness Fund. And when that film is done, we're going to have some premieres, and we want you guys to come. And the money that it costs to see the premiere, I don't know what that's going to be, $10. I mean, that's pretty cheap. I have no idea what a premiere seat cost. We want you guys to join us, and we want to raise money. And we can say this. I'm not sure Nancy has put it out on her social medias yet, but we are working with Nancy East. And it's her team. And, you know, we want to raise as much money as possible, and that is why we're doing this film. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah. I just, it's, you know, I've always enjoyed creating video content. But using video content as a way of giving back is so fulfilling. And like I said, I just could not be happier, could not be prouder of what we're doing, and knock on wood, what we're going to do with this project. So, and then having Wim as our partner, it just feels right, because especially getting to meet he and his wife this past weekend, they're just good people.
Yeah.
And they're hikers just like us.
They're hiker family.
Yeah. They're just regular people doing some extraordinary things. So yeah, I'm proud to be a partner with them. So yeah.
Awesome. So, all right, you guys, we've given you the updates. We've told you kind of what we're doing with the film. And the other thing with the film too, here on the Beyond the Trail, just like we did for the I Am the MST Mountains to Sea Trail film, we're going to have some specific behind the scenes episodes where we actually talk about the filming, how it all impacted us meaning me and Austin. We're going to have Nancy on the podcast. We're going to have Wim back on the podcast. And we're going to have a lot of fun on the podcast. So I'm going to see if we're going to see if we can get Nancy on, not the next episode, but maybe the next one. We're going to get Wim back on. And I guess we should tell you guys, that would be nice to tell you guys when we are going to be coming on, wouldn't it?
Whenever we darn well feel like it.
Well, that's true. Whenever we feel like coming on, we will. But
like tonight.
But our regular schedule is going to be the fourth Thursday of the month. And if anything holds true, like Austin and I always do, or on a whim, we'll just come live. And the best way to find out what we're doing, where the action is, when we're going live, is to subscribe to the channel. And you'll see the notification pop up and you'll know what time we're going live. That's the best way to figure it out. So there's that.
Word.
All right. So we got the updates, we got the documentary, and you guys, okay, I have to tell it. Right before this call, seriously, at 7:00, we were on a Zoom call with another trail organization that wants to work with us. And we're going to do a video, hopefully, fingers crossed. We kind of did a pitch, got to know each other. And yeah, so we're going to have another film in the works, coinciding possibly with, I almost said the name, with the one we're working on right now.
The other one.
The other one. So
lots of exciting stuff coming.
So we haven't stopped. We're moving forward. Jester, Wallis Productions. We are in full mode, full steam ahead. So we'll end this episode because, and I'm going to turn it over to Austin because this is a great story. But I'll give you some context to it. So a couple weekends ago, we were in Western North Carolina. It was cold. And we were filming, and, you know, we were there with Wim and Nancy and Haywood County, and hundreds of people, and that's the truth. And Austin was like, yeah, my brother's coming up. We were trying to get Austin's brother to come on and tell part of the story, but he had a prior commitment and could not join us tonight. Austin was like, yeah, I'm going out for 3 more days. I'm going to finish segment 3 of the Mountains of Sea Trail. And I was thinking to myself, God, it's cold. But, you know, Austin's tough, man. He's tough. Military. He can do it. So with that being said, Austin, tell us about tell us about your Frozen adventure.
The Frozen adventure. So I guess it was January. I still haven't I'm terrible about putting out my trip videos. I'm still working on a video from last July. So that should hopefully be coming out in the next week or so. But anyways, so there's no telling when the videos for this trip will come out, especially with all the stuff we just talked about being on the horizon. But my brother and I have done, for the Mountains of Sea Trail, we've done segment 1, 2, 4. I've done segment 10, and then we did the paddle route 11 to 16. So we've got a fair amount of the Mountains of Sea Trail under our belts, but I'm very obsessive compulsive. And so we've got segment 2 done. We've got segment 4 done, but we didn't have segment 3. So I was like, we need to close this gap. And so January, we were going to do the whole thing. I think we allocated like 6 or 7 days. Let's go do this. So literally on my way to the trail that morning to meet Strider. That's his trail name. He's going to go by Strider tonight. My wife called me and we had some stuff come up with family, and long story short, I only had time to do half of the trip. And so we were meeting our shuttle driver, Nate, from Traveling Light. So a huge plug for him because he definitely was super awesome that day. And I'll get back to Nate here in just a second. But anyways, we did segment 3 from the Pisgah Inn to the Folk Arts Center on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So essentially the Asheville port. We started in just southwest of Asheville, hiked through Asheville, and then finished in northeast Asheville, with the full intention of coming back and finishing the rest, going up to Mount Mitchell and then down to Black Mountain Campground. And so while we were on that trip, we were sitting at a brewery in Asheville, looking at our calendars, trying to sync them up. We're like, let's do whatever it was, that 3 days in March was what we determined we could both do. And if you know me, then I live and die by my schedule, and I usually have to plan stuff a minimum of 2 or 3 months out. But ideally, I'm 6 months out to plan anything. And so if
that's unless I call and say, Austin, I need you to do X, and then
and that's why I have no vacation left at work because I have to do all that. But anyways, I'm very rigid when it comes to like I really don't want to cancel this trip because like I've done X, Y, or Z to be able to be there. So I'm very reluctant to move plans. And so as we approach the date, obviously the weather window, we kind of get a better idea of the weather we're looking at. And my brother texts me, and I knew it was coming because I was watching it too. He's like, "Just so yeah, I don't know if you looked at the weather, but on day one, it's supposed to be rain and 37 degrees." And of course, I was like, "Oh well, that just means we don't have to deal with any tourists." So it's like,
You're talking about
um,
segment 3 of the Mountains to Sea Trail.
yeah, yeah. So so I was like, yeah, I mean, that's going to be uncomfortable, but we've done uncomfortable before. My brother and I have hiked hundreds of miles, probably close to 1,000 miles together at this point. Um, so we're very in tune with each other and on trail. And I was like, unless he says, "Hey, I don't want to do this," we're full steam ahead. And so we get out there and we ended up kind of like letting most of the rain kind of wash through. And we ended up getting on trail on day one around lunchtime and got in about 10 miles. And it was wet and it was a little chilly, but like totally inside our wheelhouse. Like we got this. So we set up camp on this saddle and eat dinner, go to bed. And then about 10:30, the wind picked up. And I mean, wind like it's just true Blue Ridge Mountain wind, like just 30-mile-an-hour gusts, 40-mile-an-hour gusts. And then the temperature just plummeted, like well below freezing. And we were
Wait a minute.
so high
Meanwhile,
up.
back at the ranch, I feel like you sent me a picture that first night and you said, "There's no bad
Yeah.
weather, there's just bad clothing." Okay.
Yeah,
I was
I was really hoping you wouldn't bring that
I
up
was trying to
because I
find
think
that because I was going to throw that picture up here. He says, "Oh, there's no bad weather. There's just bad clothing." Meanwhile, it looked like your rain jacket was frozen.
it wasn't frozen yet. Um, yeah, so I totally thumbed my nose at fate, and Julie had sent me a text asking how things were going, and I sent this like big macho picture, and I was like, "There's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing or bad gear," which is true. I still
Meanwhile, I
stand
was
by
at
that.
home wrapped up in a heating blanket. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I no, thank you.
But Mother Nature's like Mother Nature saw that text, and she's like, "Oh, I got something for you." And so that night, I think I'm comfortable in saying it was the worst night I've ever had outdoors. And that includes all my time in the military too. And because the wind was just howling all night. I got garbage sleep because of it. And my brother and I are both hammockers, so because we were up so high in elevation, we had clouds rolling through, like actual clouds rolling through the campsite all night. And so the downside of that was that our tarps, even though it wasn't really raining, our tarps were doing nothing for us as far as keeping stuff dry. So the underside of my hammock was all wet. The moisture had gotten into my hammock itself, and so the top of my sleeping bag was wet. Um, Bad news. And so we had over dinner the night before talked like, hey, let's try to step off on trail about 8 o'clock tomorrow because we had planned on doing 16 miles for day two,
Mm.
which is we've done that's a high mileage day for us, but it's definitely doable. We've done that before, um, and so 6:30 rolled around, and I mean, just the wind had not died down at all. It was just frigid temperatures,
Well, I got a
but I was
question. At any point that night, did you say we got to get up and start walking or something?
no, I wasn't there yet because like my brother and I were prepared for cold weather. Like we both had our winter sleeping bags. We were both bundled up, and so as long as we were in the bags, we were good.
Yeah.
But I knew breaking down camp was going to suck a little extra, and so I forced myself out of bed at 6:30. It's still dark, and just started slowly rolling stuff up. But the problem was with the moisture and the temperature, everything was frozen. Like the straps for my trekking poles were like just frozen. They were rock solid. The straps for the hammock were all frozen. So I mean, just everything was rigid and solid, and just trying to roll stuff up. I could only get, a couple, like when I'm rolling my tarp up, I have a snake skin for my tarp, and I would only be able to get like a couple of rolls in before my hands were just like pins and needles, and I had to stop and put them in my. I had to put my hands in my crotch. That was the warmest place I could think of, um, and warm my hands up just because they
Yeah.
hurt so much. I mean, we're talking. It's not just cold at this point. This is like real pain, and we didn't get on trail until 9:30 that morning,
Mm.
because my brother was in the same boat. Like we were in a bad spot. Like we were just. It wasn't just like that we were cold. It was that we physically couldn't move any faster because
And this was two
we were
weeks
just.
ago. This was like really recent. Or was it last week?
Yeah,
Was that last week? Yeah.
it was last weekend. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, last week. And like my brother said, he was having such a hard time. Like he actually had to sit down for a little while because he was getting lightheaded. Like
Mm.
we were dealing with some real stuff here. And
So what did you guys end up doing? Did you like say, did you guys look at each other and say, that's a wrap? We got to figure out how to
no,
get out of here or no?
no, we weren't ready to pull the plug yet. I mean, because it sucked, but we were still like within our wheelhouse. We were still within our threshold of what we felt that we could handle. Um, and so we stepped off that day, and like I said, we stepped off at 9:30, with 16 miles in front of us. So we knew we were already an hour and a half behind, which equates to maybe 3 or 4 miles, um, of distance. Like how far in distance we were behind. So we're like, well, we got, at this point, daylight savings had just switched. So we're like, we got an extra hour of daylight. So we're looking at a solid 8 to 9 hours of hiking, which is a lot, but again, doable. And so we finished. We had a whole bunch of elevation like early on in the day, and I mean, it was part of it was also my fitness level, and not being physically ready. I just didn't train like I should have, and so it was really tough for me going up those hills, and so it was slow going. And so at 2 o'clock, we had just made it past Craggy Gardens. So we're going eastbound. So we had just north of Craggy Gardens on segment 3, and it was 2 o'clock, and we had done like 7 miles. So it was that gives you an idea not only of just that was for two reasons. One was my fitness level, um, and the other was just the trail was super sketchy because you've got snow and ice on all these rocks, and especially up where we were, it wasn't just like smooth, like you couldn't even get a stride in because you're hopping over logs and rocks and going up and down stairs and ladders, and it's rugged hiking. And so we stopped to heat up some lunch and filter some water, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, the reality is like, because we still had 9 miles to go that day at 2 o'clock, and I'm like, that's probably not going to happen. um, Knowing myself, I was just like, this is probably not going to work. And so I saw my brother over there, and he's heating up. He was heating up a ramen bomb, and I was like, hey, when you get to a stopping point, let's come on over here. I want to see where your head's at. And so that's when he came over, and I was like, I think I might have bit off more than I could chew on this trip. And he knew, like I said, my brother and I have done hundreds of miles together, so he already knew before I said anything. And he also knows, like, that's not an easy thing for me to admit.
No.
And so I was like, so at that point we're looking at damage control. Like, all right, so what are our options? And so miraculously, we still had cell service. And so the first text I sent was to Nate, from Traveling Light Shuttle, uh, to see where he was. I was like, if anybody's going to come get us, it's going to be Nate. So I texted him, and he's so awesome because it turned out he wasn't going to be able to help us, not because of his, uh, it wasn't because of anything of him. It was just there was no way for him to get to us.
Yeah,
But
because
he was.
for those that don't know, the Blue Ridge Parkway, which goes through that area, the Forest Service closed it. So you guys were
Yeah.
kind of stuck in there, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. So a huge shout out to Nate because he was totally willing to come get us. He had just dropped somebody off at the Knoxville airport, and he's like, "I'm on my way back. Just let me know where to come get you." And I was like, "Right on." Um, and so I was like, because we knew, like Julie just said, we knew the parkway was closed, so there was no way for us to um, get a car to the closest possible crossing. Um, but I was like, I wonder if there's some Forest Service roads, the connector roads that might be open because the Park Service. So the Park Service owns the Blue Ridge Parkway, but it's surrounded by U.S. Forest. So the Forest Service owns that. So they don't always necessarily close Forest Service roads, but they might close the Parkway. So I called Blue Ridge Parkway dispatch, and I was like, "This is who we are. This is where we are. We're okay. We're not requesting evacuation. Just trying to get some information to make informed decisions, make smart decisions." And the dispatcher was like, "We don't have anybody near you. Nobody can come get you." And I was like, and I asked about Forest Service roads, and she's like, the I don't have any visibility on the small stuff, but everything that we know of is closed. And so I was like, okay. Well,
So
thank you.
how are you feeling at this point, knowing 2 days prior to that we had just spent the day with several search and rescue teams in that area? I mean, this is real. Like, we
Yeah,
had
this
just spent
at
the
this point,
day with the search and
yeah.
rescue team in that area.
Well, and I even told my brother, I was like, I will not become a casualty. We're not going to become casualties here. I was like, at this point, we have food for at least one more night. We have the gear to endure this weather. We may not be comfortable, but we can endure it. So we're okay. We're not, but I'm not going to put us in a position that's going to make things worse. So I was like, and so we came up with the plan to get back on the parkway. So the trail, we were only about maybe a mile or two from the next parkway crossing. So at that point, we got on the parkway and hiked to the campsite that was below Mount Mitchell that we had originally tagged to camp that night. And so we cut off actual MST miles, but still ended up doing like 17 miles that day because we did about 10 miles on the parkway.
How was the
But the
parkway?
parkway,
Was it icy? Were you able to like get
no,
footing on the
so
road? Okay.
yeah, so the parkway itself was actually gorgeous, and like that's where I posted a bunch of pictures on social media recently, and a lot of the pictures came from that parkway stretch because it was just gorgeous, but brutally cold and very windy. But we did about 10 miles on the parkway and got to where we had originally planned on camping. And then instead of going up to Mount Mitchell, there's a little cutoff trail that takes you from relatively close from the entrance of the Mount Mitchell State Park, takes you down to Black Mountain Campground. It's like a horse trail, and so it
Oh,
was
the
seven and
Buncombe
a half
Horse Trail.
miles.
I bet that's what it was.
That
Yeah.
sounds right. And that was like 7.5 miles. And so our plan was to hike to the campsite, spend the night there, and then hike out to the car. And so we were both beat. Like I said, we did almost 17 miles that day. So we got to the camp and threw up our hammocks. And at this point, I think I was starting to feel some hypothermia, quite honestly, because mentally I knew I was going.
Mm.
And so I'm sitting there
And
just shivering.
so you guys get to what time is it when you set up?
Just before dark, so it was like just before 7 or 8.
And this is
Um,
the third night,
Second night, so
second
it
night.
was 3 days, 2 nights, yeah.
Okay.
And so we set up camp, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just shivering, and I'm
Mm-mm.
not even hungry at this point, but I know my body needs calories, so I'm shoveling some beef stew down my throat, and like I didn't, and this is indicative of my mental state. I didn't film anything from the time we arrived at camp to the time we stepped off the next morning. The camera never went on for me. which I'm disappointed in myself because there's definitely some raw emotion that I could have captured. But I was miserable. I'm not gonna lie. I was sitting there eating dinner like this was probably a trip I should have called, just because it was so uncomfortable
I was going to
and
ask
like
you yeah,
borderline dangerous. Because
what's your takeaway now that it's like, 10 days later?
don't do that crap again.
Yeah.
Um, down to 16 degrees that night, and I was genuinely worried uh, about our safety. So I told Joe, I was like, if you hear me breaking camp in the middle of the night, I'm camp and I'm going to hike 7.5 miles in the dark so that I don't freeze to death. Because I was genuinely worried about freezing, like literally like dying. Um, and so that just kind of gives you an idea of my mental state. And it was not a good place. I don't like being in that kind of a place.
Mm.
And so we woke up the next morning, and we had gotten a bunch of dirty water at our last water stop because we didn't know what like where we were going to be, and so we cameled up, as we call it, with water, and our dirty bags had both frozen, like solid ice. I had 2 liter bag. My Knockfecto 2 liter bag was a big solid block of ice, and we didn't have any water. I'd slept with a water bottle, and so but even that had a lot of ice in it. But I was able to pour out just enough from my water bottle, heat it up, and then pour it back in the water bottle. So I had something to drink, and it was so cold that my brother was able to um, filter some while we were there at camp, but the water was freezing within 30 minutes. We had frozen water bottles within 30 minutes. So that gives you an idea of the cold that we were dealing with.
Well,
And
Jason
so we,
says it sounds like one of those embrace the suck moments.
oh, there was
Most
no embracing.
definitely.
This was solid type 3 fun.
Ish.
Um,
And then we
and
do have a question from Skunk. He wants to know about a fire. Was that even possible?
everything was wet. Um, yeah, we'd thought about, because I always carry fire starter. I carry my striker that Skunk gave me. But everything was still wet. And it was just like we were more interested in getting in our sleeping bags than we were trying to nurse a fire at that point, because everything was either wet from the previous rain or it was covered in snow, because we were dealing with snow and ice at this point. Um, so we would have just expended too much energy, I think, trying to build a fire, and that really wouldn't have done much for us. Maybe mentally a little bit, but we would have just been fighting it the whole time. But anyways, so we woke up that last morning and determined that uh, it didn't make any sense for us to try to filter water for the hike out, because the water was going to freeze in our bottles, in our packs, before we could drink it. So we filtered as much as possible, heated up as much as possible, and then just pounded a bunch of water, um, and then stepped off. No water, which,
Mm.
if you know me, that's one of my fears. So hiking 7.5 miles with no water uh, was a challenge for me, but we made it. I mean, and I told my brother, I was like, I know that from a hiker safety standpoint, this is bad. Like we should not be hiking without water. Um, but I know where we're going. We're 7.5 miles from the car. We're not going to die. We might be thirsty when we get there, but we're not going to die, is what I told them. And so we smoked out, and of course we're coming down from Mount Mitchell, so the entire hike
Yeah.
out was
Down.
downhill or flat. So we smoked through 7.5 miles and got down to the car. But it was what struck me as we were getting down to Black Mountain, and Black Mountain's still up there. Like, it's not
Yeah.
just, I say down.
It's like
Um,
1,800 feet or something like that.
yeah, yeah, it's still up, but it was so the temperature change and the weather change was so drastic from the high elevations where we had slept to where we ended up that day. Um, I was like, this is just it's like a tease, because I looked at the weather when we got down to the car. The weather, it was still a sunny day at that point, but it was still in the 30s. Um, But I looked at the weather for Mount Mitchell where we were going to be, and it was still in the low 20s with howling winds. And I was like, that just doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
No, not on Mount
So
Mitchell. I've been warning you about that hike.
yeah, so
You want to do that when it's
so
bright blue skies, sunny, and hot.
yeah, so I mean, the whole reason I like the winter hiking is because there's nobody else out there, because I really enjoy the solitude and the isolation. Um, but that hike, the solitude and isolation actually came back to bite us a little bit, because we were so isolated that we ended up there was nobody to come. Like if we needed legitimate help, there was nobody to come get us. So we ended up self-rescue, or doing a self-rescue. But that just goes back to, you got to be honest with yourself. I needed to be honest with myself, and make sound decisions, to not make a bad situation worse.
Yeah.
So my takeaways are, for me, one is be a little more honest with myself about fitness levels, because I think that could have helped a lot. But then also just understanding, not necessarily because it's not that we didn't check the weather, but appreciating that weather at altitude is going to be a lot. What's the word? It's just going to be a little angrier. And so the cold, the wind, the precipitation is just going to be a little angrier when you're up there.
Yeah.
And so just respecting it, I think, was my big takeaway. So we'll be back. We're going to finish off the last little bit that we skipped when we got on the Parkway.
I was going to ask you, because
yeah.
I know what I would have to do. It'd be killing me in my brain right now. Like, there's no way I got to go back and do. So,
well, my brother
sounds like
was
you're going to
like,
go back and do.
Yeah, my brother was like, technically we have covered these miles. You don't have to hike the trail, because
No,
the
Joe.
Parkway.
No.
Yeah, no, thank you. I told him, I was like, absolutely not. I'm a purist.
When you watch this, Joe, that is a no. Okay. In the chat, yes or no, does Austin and Joe have to go back and do those miles?
Well, we're gonna go do them no matter what.
You don't have to do them, but I just know as hikers,
I want to.
Yeah.
Because it's a totally different experience, hiking on the trail versus hiking on the road. But I will say, hiking on the Parkway when it's completely shut down and there's nobody else out there was really cool. It was just kind of, it was a different experience that I don't think, I mean, obviously you just can't get any other way. Because you think about the Blue Ridge Parkway in like spring and summer, and I mean, you can't throw a dead cat without hitting a pack of motorcycles and a soccer mom with her van full of kids at an overlook, but like we were literally the only ones out there.
Poor soccer moms, they get a bad rap. Well, listen, the chat has been right here with you.
Fantastic.
They have been commenting that you're crazy, and that they're there. They're glad you're safe. They're glad you're okay. And they've also voted that you have to go back.
Oh yeah, right. That's a no-brainer.
Well, of course they do. Absolutely, of course, 100%. Yeah. And Jason says, you guys, is also out section hiking the Mountains of Sea Trail. Jason, you're almost done, I think, or close to it. He says he's got to do every step, hike your own hike. There you go.
Absolutely. Every step. I told Joe, I was like, we're going back. Literally we have to step where we came off trail, and then we have to walk the however many feet across the Parkway there. I mean, we can't skip a beat.
Well, we need to put a hashtag out there. Hashtag Joe must go. So there, Joe must go. Oh yeah, Jason says he's going to finish up this year, hopefully. So
that's what I'm talking about.
Belinda is giving 2 thumbs up. So there you have it. The chat has spoken. So Austin, I'm glad you're back. Skunk always has something to say about a hammock. Oh. Yeah, he wants to have you on the Hammock Hangers podcast. So there you go. That'd be fun.
I think it's only appropriate, Skunk, if I'm going to have to invite my brother along too. Because I asked him to be on the podcast tonight, but he couldn't, because in true Strider fashion, he's he's also a scoutmaster for a scout troop. And they've got their meeting tonight.
This is for Joe. Joe must go, but not in winter.
But not in the winter.
So
yes. I think we're done with winter hikes for a little while at least.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, we're done. The winter hikes are the best views, but we're over it. And Skunk says that'll work. So y'all connect, go on the podcast, and we'll let you know when Austin and Joe are on the Hammock Hangers podcast. But you know what, Austin? I think we're good.
Yep.
I think everybody understands what we're doing. We've got Beyond the Trail. We've got Jester Wallis Productions. We've got our films going. I got to read this. Jason says he's a hardcore hammocker now, but one of my rough nights I had out on I can't even read. I didn't know. Asked to share my tent. Huh? But one of my rough nights out, I had a hammocker I didn't know. Oh. No, thank you.
I don't even think my brother and I would be comfortable sharing a tent. It would have to be really bad.
No. Well, Jason, what did you do? You got to tell us what you did before we leave.
Some stranger. Hopefully it wasn't a stranger at least.
He says a hammocker he didn't know.
Oh, man.
Yeah. We're going to have to wait a minute because there is a little bit of a lag. I got to know what Jason did. So there's probably an 8 to 10 second lag in that you guys are seeing. So we got to wait. Otherwise,
there's Nancy.
Nancy! Wait a minute. What did I call these earlier?
The whoop whoop hands.
The whoop whoop hands, you guys. So Nancy says I'm putting you on blast, Nancy. She says she's been listening the whole time, but I've been driving home now. Hey! So glad the Type 3 fun ended well, Austin, and love the new name for the production company. Thank you, Nancy. We will see you soon. Very, very, very soon.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, you guys. Honestly, right now, go over hikermetals.com, Jester, all caps, 20% off. You don't have to wait until the film comes out to give the Western North Carolina Safety Fund a donation for all the wonderful things that they do in Western North Carolina with keeping hikers safe, for going out and getting you safe off the trail and bringing you back out alive. And we're so glad that was not you, Austin. I am so glad Nancy and her crew did not have to come out and save you and your brother.
I would have been absolutely humiliated. I'm not going to lie.
I am so glad. Okay, we're going to end on this. Jason.
There it is.
Shared the tent.
What a guy.
Wow. All right, you guys. We're just going to sign off like we normally do. And I'm going to tell you guys, be safe out there. And Austin's going to tell you guys,
good times.